Hi, Danimal Cannon coming to you from the bridge of the USS Enterprise, and you're watching Trek Watch. Welcome to the very first episode of Trek Watch. Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite show of all time, and I will be ranking and reviewing every single episode until we have a completely objective, not at all biased, tier ranking of every single episode. Strap yourself in because I'm going to be going in chronological order, and if for some reason you haven't seen The Next Generation yet, first off, spoilers, and second off, I do not recommend you watch them in order. The Next Generation's not a serial show, and in general, I find the earlier episodes to be far inferior to the majority of the series, with exceptions. If you're a fan, though, I think the earlier episodes are really fascinating when viewed through the lens of the entire series, and should be a lot of fun to talk about. So without further ado, the very first episode from September of 1987, Encounter at Farpoint, written by DC or Dorothy Catherine Fontana and Gene Roddenberry himself. I'm going to try and sprinkle in some trivia here and there, and to be honest, this episode probably has the most bits of trivia of any of them because they were kind of figuring everything out for the first time, and to be honest, it kind of seemed like a giant mess. Like, for example, what's this? Oh, it's an hour and a half long. For some reason, Paramount wanted to do a double-length pilot episode. Gene Roddenberry was very against this because they didn't have a story, they didn't know the actors, they didn't have their roles nailed down. Everything was happening for the first time. But Paramount wanted to make a big splash, and they wanted a 2-hour episode. A Paramount executive actually threatened to throw Gene Roddenberry off the lot if he refused to do it. They eventually settled on a compromise of an hour and a half, which you might know was way too long. Apparently, debate over the length of the episode lasted a while, and writer DC Fontana had immense difficulty finishing an outline, not knowing how long the episode would be. Some of the things up in the air before filming were Jean-Luc Picard was originally named Julien Picard, security chief was going to be Macha Hernandez and then changed to Tasha Yar, and Marina Sirtis was going to play her. She eventually ended up switching roles with Denise Crosby, who was going to play Deanna Troi. By the way, I have to mention, Deanna Troi was originally supposed to have 4 boobs, but luckily, Gene Roddenberry's wife and DC Fontana managed to convince him that that was a really bad idea. However, Gene Roddenberry has never been one to let a great idea go to waste. So 2 years later, in 1989, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, you got a 3-boobed woman. It's not 4, but I'll take it. And just for the record, yes, that's before Total Recall. Wait, that's Ensign Sonia Gomez from Season 2. Now that we have boob talk out of the way, I'm gonna dive right into the episode, and some interesting quirks is this is the only episode I'm aware of that has Act 1 take place after the opening credits. And I have to say, I love the opening shot of Picard. So mysterious. And then, for some reason, they follow it up with one of the shakiest handheld camera shots of the entire series. It kind of looks like crap. The intro sequence has some of the most wooden dialogue of the entire series, and that can mostly be forgiven, but the moment where Data has to dramatically get up from his seat to discuss the definition of the word snoop, it's a lot. Hey, nice boots, Deanna. So after some completely wooden dialogue, the crew discusses the mystery of Farpoint Station.
Farpoint Station. Even the name sounds mysterious.
And Q shows up, with some effects that actually look pretty good, and starts preaching to Picard about the sins of humanity, how they're a savage race. I think it's worth mentioning when this is happening that only half the people on the bridge are human. Worf, Troy, and Data, they should probably not be punished for the sins of humanity. But you know Star Trek, it's nothing if not terribly anthropic. And besides, Picard's first day on the job, and he has to answer for the crimes of the entire history of humanity. So they try to escape Q, and they do this really dramatic saucer separation, and there's just 5 minutes of aghast reaction shots, and It's supposed to be a really big deal, but it really falls very flat. So Worf takes over the saucer section, they separate, and Q ends up catching up with the drive section with the skeleton crew they got there. Hi, O'Brien.
We surrender. State that we are not asking for any terms or conditions.
Aye, sir.
And Q decides to take them to a trial. And Q takes them to, I don't know, a 21st century court. There's a guy with a broken umbrella. I guess that kind of adds to the Mad Max vibe of it all. I do want to say, I just love how janky Q's levitating judge chair is as he jostles back and forth as it levitates dramatically. Oh my god, I forgot they shot the bailiff. Also, what does he suck on just before they shoot him? Q did that too.
Oh, better. Drug.
They ended up getting transported back to the battle bridge, and O'Brien doesn't even notice. They all give each other the side eye, and O'Brien's, oh, doo-doo-doo. So they end up going to Farpoint Station. It turns out Riker's already there, and this guy, Groppler Zorn, which is the best name I've ever heard in my entire life. I'm pretty sure Groppler is a title, but I think you can call him Groppler as a first name. I'm just saying I want to name my kid Groppler. Anyways, he offers him an Earth delicacy, which apparently are apples. I don't know, apples kind of suck. So Riker meets this mysterious Groppler Zorn, and then he meets Wesley and Dr. Crusher. During his introduction with Wesley, he says, oh, you know the captain? Yeah, he brought me my dad's dead body. Like, oh my god. Hey kid, maybe don't lead with that. I realize that works kind of as a plot exposition thing, but oof. I mean, one of the most fascinating things about this episode is everyone is so awkward and kind of a jerk to each other.
If you're wondering about Mom, Commander Riker, she's not unfriendly. She's just shy around men she doesn't know.
Wesley?
The Enterprise is arriving,
Is
but...
this an official report, Lieutenant?
Sorry, Commander.
So they go back to the battle bridge, and it looks like Picard actually has his own office on the battle bridge. I don't remember ever seeing that before. And it's kind of interesting. It's covered in acoustic foam, kind of like an anechoic chamber. Oh, looks kind of cool. Riker gets back on the ship and gets tested by Picard, and he has to do a manual docking. And I have to say, this is one of the most boring scenes I have ever seen in Star Trek The Next Generation. Picard and Riker meeting each other for the first time. Picard's like, please don't let me make an ass out of myself in front of children. It's very strange.
Though I would appreciate it if you could keep me from making an ass of myself with children. Sir?
Oh hey, it's DeForest Kelley. So they go back to the Farpoint station, and I kind of like how Groppler Zorn complains that even the presence of a Betazoid is an invasion of privacy.
But I'm puzzled over you bringing a Betazoid to this meeting. If her purpose, sir, is to probe my thoughts.
I can sense only strong emotions, Groppler.
Also, do they imply the Ferengi eat people?
The Ferengi would be very interested in a base like this.
Fine. Let's hope they find you as tasty as they did their past associates.
Riker decides to go check out the holodeck, and the computer voice sounds different. I don't think that's Majel Barrett.
Lieutenant Commander Data, now located in holodeck area 4J.
And on this episode, we have the very first appearance of the holodeck. And I gotta say, in 2021, visually, it still looks perfect. What a well-designed and executed visual effect. I do like Data very bluntly pointing out to prejudice is very human. However, the line about him being Pinocchio, did you really need to say your entire character arc in a single line?
I would gladly give it up to be human.
So Wesley's a big nerd with his mom, and he really wants to go up on the bridge. And we kind of set up all these really kind of awkward scenes leading up to this, with Picard being like, I don't want to be an ass in front of children, and Picard delivering Wesley's father's dead body to him as an intro. However, Wesley coming onto the bridge, I think all the setup is really bad and really ham-fisted, but I think the payoff works due to stellar acting by Patrick Stewart.
Your son.
His name's Wesley. You last saw him years ago when...
Eventually, they figure out the mystery that the giant spaceship is actually a space jellyfish, and they decide not to kill it because Q kind of tips them off. Turns out the space jellyfish just wants their partner back. It's all very lovely. I actually think the space jellyfish cuddling scene is very tender. Upon rewatch, I am noticing that one of them is pink and one of them is blue, because of course they are. In Star Trek, we just can't help but be anthropic as hell. Like, one of them has to be a boy and one's a girl. See? Even our aliens are straight. Oh, Tasha's wearing the skirt dress now. Oh, vertical credits. I don't think we have that in any other episode. All right, well, final thoughts. It's really not good. It's one of the clunkiest episodes from a character and acting perspective, which is understandable. And it's also way too long. Those padded out scenes with majestic Enterprise porn mixed with reaction shots may have worked in the motion picture, but they easily could have been trimmed for this one. But I don't think it's all terrible. I like Q, and the plot twist is classic Trek. And who doesn't love giant space jellyfish cuddles? I think a great editor could cobble together a decent episode if it was 45 minutes long. In fact, I think the biggest sin of this episode, it's boring. All right, let's break out the metrics. So the first important metric over here at Trek Watch is the horniness meter. If you know anything about Star Trek, you know this show loves to get horny. Encounter at Farpoint keeps things pretty chaste. Good for you, Gene. Sorry you didn't get 4 boobs. Aside from some longing looks between Troy and Riker, this episode really manages to keep it in its pants. Out of a scale of 1 to 10, it gets a 2. Barely horny at all. Our second metric over here at Trek Watch is the PTSD meter. Many episodes have the crew go through events that would shatter the psyche of a normal person. In this episode, I'm gonna have to give it a 4. Marina Sirtis conjures up some tears, and Picard has to answer for the crimes of humanity on his first day of work. Also, the poor bailiff gets murdered right in front of them with a machine gun? Oh well, I'm sure most of their days will be much more interesting. Our third and final metric over here at Trek Watch is the thought-provoking meter. Star Trek is at its best when it teaches us something about ourselves or life itself. As much as it's about fantastic worlds and sci-fi geekiness, it's really just a lens for us to view humanity from another perspective. On this scale out of 10, Encounter at Farpoint gets a 3. The episode teases out some really big concepts, but at the end of the day, humanity doesn't deserve to be destroyed because they didn't use weapons to solve a problem, or something. Luckily, later on in the series, they actually fleshed this out a little bit more, so I'm happy the seeds were planted, but it rings a little hollow. To be honest, I just enjoy John Delancey making fun of humans for how messed up our current society is. I'll take that jab, Q. Well placed. Now my goal for this series is to rank every single TNG episode against each other in your classic tier list. As we only have one entry, this is easy. Encounter at Farpoint, I'm gonna put it in the D area. I think I'm being very charitable here. A lot of people would probably put it as an F. It's definitely one of the worst episodes of the series, and I definitely think it's poorly executed. But because of the history of it, I think it's really fascinating to watch it through the lens of the rest of the series. It's interesting to watch your favorite characters act incongruently with how you know them and love them. And there's lots of details in their backstories that are revealed here. It's a mess, but warts and all, I don't completely hate it. Thanks for sticking around. My name is Danimal Cannon. Be sure to subscribe to see more episodes. What did you think? What did I miss? What did I get wrong? Let me know in the comments, because if you're not pedantic, are you even really a Star Trek fan? Thanks, guys. See you next mission.
I'm sure most will be much more interesting.
Subscribe to Trek Watch.
Engage.